Alright, today I'm going to be ranking every song on The Weeknd's original trilogy of mixtapes. I did a video a little while back ranking all the Weeknd albums, and that will be linked in the description. And I thought that it would be fun to go down from that to the song level and do a ranking of all of the songs on his groundbreaking original trilogy. I won't be including any songs from the bonus tracks on the trilogy compilation because honestly I've never really been a fan of any of those. This is just going to be the songs from the original 3 mixtapes. And so yeah, let's jump into that list. At number 27 is going to be The Zone. And this one is just such a disappointment because Drake and The Weeknd working together is something that just should work. And just a few months after the release of this song, we would get the release of Drake's album Take Care, which featured Crew Love. And that's a song where the Drake and Weeknd crossover really does work very well. But here it just does not work. The production is bland as can be. The tune is a pale imitation of better trilogy songs, and when Drake finally comes in towards the end, he adds very little to the song. And the final thing that sort of seals the doom for this song, in my opinion, is something that I always forgot about up until this most recent listen, which is that this is a relatively long song. It's almost 7 minutes long. And unlike a lot of the other longer songs on the trilogy, this one doesn't split itself into multiple parts and multiple phases. So it's basically just one single musical idea being dragged out over way too long of a period of time. So yeah, this one is easily my least favorite in the trilogy and one of the few that I genuinely just don't like. At number 26 is going to be Echoes of Silence. I love Echoes of Silence, the album, but this closing track on the album, unfortunately, is pretty hard to defend. It's essentially a very intimate, quiet little piano ballad. The problem is that it just doesn't really have any creative production choices or melodic ideas to really spice it up. And that could be forgiven if it really had some great lyrics that really brought the trilogy to an amazing or impressive thematic conclusion. But honestly, it doesn't really have that either. I would have actually preferred the previous song on the album as a closing track to the trilogy over this one. And so yeah, ultimately this is just a very disappointing conclusion to the trilogy. At number 25 is going to be The Fall. This one isn't quite as baffling as a song like Echoes, but in my opinion, every element of the song feels like it was sampled and borrowed from other trilogy songs. Nothing here sounds original or really all that interesting. Definitely one of the most boring tracks on the trilogy. At number 24 is going to be Rolling Stone. And I think the acoustic guitar, the choice to go with an acoustic guitar on this one was a welcome change of pace for just the sound of the trilogy. It's just unfortunate that he chose to take this single acoustic guitar phrase and just repeat it over and over and over again for the entire duration of the song with basically nothing in the way of progression or anything like that. At number 23 is going to be The Knowing. This is the closer on House of Balloons. And this one, for me, just doesn't really give me all that much to grab onto. I think the shoegazy guitars that come in towards the end are kind of nice, but it's too little too late, in my opinion. At number 22 is going to be Loft Music. And what I will say for this one is that the first 10 seconds or so at the very beginning of the song are really solid. Basically, Abel takes this beach house sample and flips it into something that sounds incredibly spacious and haunting and atmospheric. I really like it. But then from there, the song pretty quickly loses me with some very lackluster verses that then eventually give way to this meandering outro section that lasts for nearly 4 minutes, and yeah, it just doesn't really go anywhere. At number 21 is going to be Heaven or Las Vegas. I do think this one has some good musical ideas. I like the driving guitars and drums, and I really love the piano parts. But the thing is that I think the mixing on this one kind of takes away most of the punch that the instrumentation otherwise would have had. And I also think that the song just kind of overstays its welcome a little bit. It's a little too long. At number 20 is going to be The Birds Part 2. This one is built on this stuttering, glitchy guitar part that I think is pretty solid. Overall, it's okay while it's on, but I don't really have anything more to say about it than that. At number 19 is going to be Gone, and this one is the longest song on the trilogy at over 8 minutes, and in my opinion, it doesn't quite justify its runtime. I think the first section of the song, even if it's a little bit too familiar, is overall pretty solid. I like the very icy synth leads and the sort of like snapping and crackling sounds that remind me almost of like Matmos style micro beats. But eventually the first section gives way to a brief sort of interlude section that then eventually goes into the second main part of the song. And, the second part, in my opinion, is just not as good. I do like how hard the drums hit on this portion of the song. But unfortunately, Abel himself just sounds kind of lost, giving this very so-so vocal performance that just sounds kind of buried and overly affected. And he just fails to really hit on any memorable melodic ideas or anything like that. And then this section of the song just kind of keeps going until long after it's run out of steam. At number 18 is going to be The Party and the After Party, and this is another long two-parter that slightly overstays its welcome. I think the first half, once again, is pretty solid. It samples Master of None by Beach House in a pretty clever way, and overall, if it stood on its own, it would be much, much higher on this list. Unfortunately, though, the second half of the song, like with Gone, is where we sort of run into some trouble. I do really like the guitar loop that the second half of the song is built on, but because it really lacks a solid tune, it starts to drag pretty quickly and again, just kind of goes on for too long. At number 17 is going to be What You Need. And this one is just sort of a drug-infused, slow drip on House of Balloons with some really good synth parts and these sort of sound effects that in reality are probably just like reversed hi-hats, but to me they always sound like, I don't know, Darth Vader breathing or like somebody letting out a pneumatic valve or something. This is a song that I've always sort of felt like I should love, but have never quite entirely loved. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just that the songwriting isn't anything to write home about, or maybe it's just because of how, like, affected and, drowning in reverb the whole song is. I'm not really sure what it is, but overall, this is still a pretty solid song. At number 16 is going to be Coming Down. This is a really eerie, underrated highlight on House of Balloons that is just incredibly atmospheric, and I like it a lot. At number 15 is going to be Lonely Star. This is the opener on Thursday, and overall it's just a really solid song. I think the ending of it maybe goes on a bit too long, which is why it's not higher on the list, but still really love it. At number 14 is Next, and this is the last really solid song on the trilogy, and I think it could honestly work as a pretty good ending. Abel just sounds really burnt out on this one, and the music just has this like mournful, tragic tone to it that I love. Overall, it's a very well-constructed song. At number 13 is going to be Thursday. This one has one of the most memorable lyrical refrains on the trilogy where he keeps repeating, not on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but on Thursday, which on the surface has just always cracked me up. the meaning behind the refrain is maybe a little bit darker and more matches the dark tone of the music. But overall, I just really love the song. At number 12 is going to be EXO slash The Host. And this placement really hurts me because the first half of the song, the EXO half, is as good as anything on this trilogy. This could easily be top 5 if it was on its own. The production is super dark and absolutely fantastic. The lyrics are amazing and lay bare sort of the dark underbelly of the perpetual party lifestyle. I think some of Abel's best songwriting ever falls on this song. And then there's also just that unforgettable chorus. Unfortunately, though, we get a second half to the song, which is pales in comparison, to say the least. Really, the second half serves more as an extended prelude to the next song on the album, which is Initiation. And in my opinion, it's just extremely unnecessary and bland. And, that would be fine if it was like the last 30 seconds or so of the song, just like a quick outro, but it's not. It is like over 2.5 minutes at the end of the song. So it's like an entire another song tacked on to the end of EXO. And unfortunately, that just really drags down the quality overall. So yeah, EXO, phenomenal song. The Host, definitely a skip for me. At number 11 is going to be Life of the Party. This one interpolates a song called Drugs in My Body by Thieves Like Us and turns it into a wonderfully dark highlight on Thursday. I just love how sinister the guitars on this one sound. And speaking of sinister, at number 10 is going to be Initiation. And this is easily the darkest song on the entire trilogy, which is really saying something because this has never exactly been an upbeat series of mixtapes. This song basically explores the way that women get taken advantage of in a party environment with very uncomfortable lines like, "I got a test for you, you say you want my heart, well baby you can have it all, there's just something that I need from you, it's to meet my boys," which is an unbelievably ominous statement. And the production here does not help it to feel any less ominous and threatening. It's very dark, and Abel's vocals have this effect on them where they keep oscillating back and forth between like a very high pitch and then a very low pitch, sort of simulating the effect of like listening to someone talking while you're extremely high on drugs. Many songs before this on the trilogy had a vaguely predatory feel to them, which was very deliberate, but this one takes it to a whole new level and honestly just makes me feel dirty even listening to it. So yeah, thankfully the next song on the list at number 9 is going to be The Morning. And this one goes in a very different direction and ends up being one of the warmest songs on the entire trilogy project. Most of the songs on the trilogy either give off a vibe of being very sinister and dark or being very like cold and sad and mournful. But the sloshing synths and those fantastic guitar parts on this one give off a very different vibe. This song is absolutely iconic for very good reason, and it's just an unforgettable ode to the club. At number 8 is going to be Same Old Song, which is Anything But. I think the most memorable thing about this song is the chorus where Abel hits and holds this single note and draws it out for an uncomfortable length of time. Lyrically on this one, he's sort of telling this girl that he's already been around the block, he knows her type, and she's basically just singing the same old song. At number 7 is going to be DD, which is the opener on Echoes of Silence, and it is, of course, a cover of Dirty Diana by Michael Jackson, which is honestly pretty fitting because if there's any modern artist that could be kind of said to have taken up the mantle from Michael Jackson, it would definitely be The Weeknd. And as far as quality on this one, I'd say that it's about on par with the original, especially because this is a studio recording and the original is a live recording, which is something that I'm not always the biggest fan of, but No disrespect to that original, because it is really fantastic. But yeah, this song just hits incredibly hard at the beginning of Echoes and is a highlight on the trilogy. At number 6 is going to be House of Balloons / Glass Table Girls. And what do you know? This is a two-parter where both halves are actually really good. The first half heavily samples and interpolates Happy House by Susie and the Banshees, and just flips it into this song with an incredible dark party atmosphere vibe. I love the chorus where Abel just continually insists on repeating that this is a happy house and everything here is fun, 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 even though clearly the opposite is true. And then the second half of the song features even darker production and finds Abel like quasi-rapping about doing coke. It's really dark and really raw in just the best way. At number 5 is going to be Outside. This is a very dreary highlight from Echoes of Silence. The slow tempo of this one just always makes me feel like I'm levitating, and I love the lyrics on the chorus. Forget what you know, make yourself at home, 'cause baby, when I'm finished with you, you won't want to go outside. At number 4 is going to be High for This. This is the opener on House of Balloons, and it serves as an incredible, just perfect introduction to the trilogy. Lyrically, it introduces us to Abel's party boy persona, where he's trying to convince this girl to do drugs with him in a tone that is slightly unsettling and maybe a little predatory. And musically, the song is just dark and haunting, and the thing that stands out the most about it is this fantastic, just haunting, droning synth that is on the chorus. At number 3 is going to be The Birds Part 1, and this is the biggest banger on the trilogy. This is one really to just sing your heart out to if your voice can even go that high, which mine really can't. And I also really love the lyrical concept on this song, where Abel is likening himself to a bird that will eventually fly south for warmer weather and, warning this girl to stay away from him. At number 2 is going to be Montreal, and this one is a long time personal favorite. There is so much to love about this one. I love the contrast between the almost industrial percussion and the very ethereal sounding French language sections. I love the very dreamlike way that the music just sort of floats by at so many points. I love the lyrics where Abel's character is having a rare moment of showing some genuine vulnerability. One night when I was a teenager, I was outside doing God knows what and listening to music. And this song came on, and for whatever reason, I just decided to stop whatever I was doing and lay back on the hood of my car and just look up at the stars as I listened to this song. And yeah, that's an experience I think about a lot, because I think that is exactly how this song was made to be experienced. But at number 1, of course, is going to be Wicked Games. This one starts with the lines, I left my girl back home, I don't love her no more, and she'll never fucking know that. And then proceeds to detail an act of infidelity with zero sense of remorse, which is just par for the course for this trilogy character. Musically, the song very much lives up to the title, as it sounds just completely evil. It perfectly captures the wrongness of what's happening in the lyrics, but also the temptation and the allure of it, which is something that I think Abel on this trilogy does better than almost anywhere else that I've ever heard in music. The production on this song is absolutely flawless. And when I was making this list originally, I was considering putting a couple of other different songs in the number 1 slot, but ultimately it had to be this one. This song has everything that I love about the trilogy, and in my opinion is one of the best Weeknd songs ever put to tape. And yeah, that's my ranking. Tell me if you agree or disagree with it in the comments. I always love to hear from you guys, and with that said, thank you for watching.